Imagine you are drifting through the pitch-black depths of the Indian Ocean, thousands of feet below the surface. Suddenly, a massive, ghostly shape emerges from the gloom. It looks like something from a nightmare or a high-budget monster movie with fleshy fins that move like rhythmic limbs and a prehistoric gaze that seems to pierce through time itself. You are looking at a coelacanth, a creature that was supposed to have vanished 66 million years ago, along with the Tyrannosaurus rex. For nearly a century, scientists were absolutely certain this fish was a fossil, a mere relic of a world that no longer exists. And then, in 1938, one showed up in a fishing net off the coast of South Africa, alive and well. But the coelacanth is just the beginning. Scattered across our planet are biological anomalies, creatures that have survived multiple mass extinctions, asteroid impacts, and the shifting of entire continents. They are the living dead of the animal kingdom, refusing to follow the rules of evolution. Today, we are diving deep into the mysteries of 10 prehistoric animals that are still walking, swimming, and crawling among us, and we will explore why modern science is still struggling to explain how they cheated time for millions of years. The first enigma on our list is the one we just mentioned, the coelacanth. This fish is often called the ultimate living fossil, but that title barely scratches the surface of how weird this animal truly is. When the first living specimen was identified by Marjorie Courtenay-Latimer, it sent shockwaves through the scientific community that are still vibrating today. Why is it so unexplained? First, there is the matter of its anatomy. It has a vestigial lung, a fat-filled organ that suggests its ancestors might have once breathed air or lived in much shallower waters. Even stranger are its lobed fins, which contain bones arranged similarly to the limbs of land-dwelling vertebrates. For a long time, we thought the coelacanth was the direct missing link between fish and the first animals to walk on land. But genetic sequencing has shown that it is actually a distant cousin, a side branch of the tree of life that just decided to stop changing. It has practically no evolutionary pressure to adapt. It lives in deep-sea caves where the environment hasn't changed in millions of years, yet it possesses a highly specialized sensory organ in its snout called the rostral organ, used to detect electrical fields. How a creature can remain virtually identical for 400 million years while the rest of the world was busy inventing mammals, birds, and humans is a question that challenges our entire understanding of how fast evolution is supposed to move. Moving from the ocean depths to the jagged islands of New Zealand, we encounter our second mystery, the tuatara. At first glance, you might think you are looking at a common lizard, but look closer. Especially at the top of its head, the tuatara possesses a well-developed third eye, known as the parietal eye, complete with a lens, retina, and nerve endings. While many reptiles have a vestigial version of this, in the tuatara, it is remarkably prominent in hatchlings. This creature is the last standing member of an entire order called Rhynchocephalia, which flourished 200 million years ago. Every other member of its family disappeared when the dinosaurs did, leaving the tuatara as a lonely survivor. Science struggles to explain its incredible longevity because the tuatara has one of the slowest growth rates and lowest reproductive cycles in the animal kingdom. They don't reach sexual maturity until they are about 20 years old, and they can live for over a century. In a world where fast reproduction usually wins the evolutionary race, the tuatara's slow and steady approach should have led to its disappearance long ago. Yet, here it is, a living relic with a brain structure more primitive than any other reptile, defying the very concept of progress. Next, we must talk about the horseshoe crab. If you have ever seen one of these on a beach, you are looking at a design that hasn't changed in 450 million years. These aren't even true crabs. They are more closely related to spiders and scorpions. Their survival is a masterclass in biological resilience, but it's their blood that leaves scientists baffled. Horseshoe crabs have bright blue blood because it uses copper instead of iron to carry oxygen. But more importantly, their blood contains a unique clotting agent called limulus amebocyte lysate. This substance is so sensitive that it can detect the presence of bacteria at a level of 1 part per trillion, instantly forming a gel-like clot around the invader. This is their only immune defense, and it is so effective that it has protected them from every pathogen the Earth has thrown at them for 500 million years. Science still hasn't fully grasped how such a primitive organism developed an immune system that is, in many ways, more sophisticated and reliable than our own. We literally harvest their blood to test every vaccine and medical implant for contamination because we cannot recreate this prehistoric miracle in a lab. They are the silent guardians of human medicine, Yet their own history remains shrouded in mystery. The fourth survivor takes us into the freshwater rivers of North America, the Mississippi paddlefish. This creature looks like a shark that crashed into a kitchen utensil. It sports a massive, paddle-shaped snout that can reach 1/3 of its total body length. Fossil records show that the paddlefish has been swimming in these waters since the early Cretaceous, over 120 million years ago. The paddle, or rostrum, is covered in thousands of sensory pores that act like a high-tech antenna, allowing the fish to detect the tiny electrical signals of plankton in murky water. What science cannot fully explain is how this fish survived the massive environmental shifts that occurred in the American interior, while other ancient freshwater giants disappeared as rivers changed course and climates cooled. The paddlefish remained unchanged. Its genome has undergone remarkably few alterations, leading some researchers to believe it possesses a ultra-stable DNA repair mechanism that prevents the mutations that normally drive evolutionary change. It is as if the paddlefish reached a state of biological perfection eons ago and decided that further progress was unnecessary. Staying in the water, we have to address the sturgeon, known mostly to the public as the source of caviar. Sturgeons are actually armored giants that date back 200 million years. They are often called the dinosaurs of the fish world. They have no scales. Instead, they are covered in 5 rows of bony plates called scutes. What makes the sturgeon a scientific headache is its genetic complexity. Many species of sturgeon are polyploid, meaning they have multiple sets of chromosomes, sometimes up to 8 or 16 sets. In most animals, this kind of genetic redundancy leads to complications, but in sturgeons, it seems to be the secret to their survival. It allows them to adapt to vastly different salinities and temperatures, moving between the open ocean and freshwater rivers with ease. However, the mystery lies in why they maintain such a massive, complex genome, when most successful species tend to streamline their genetic code over time. They are a walking contradiction. A primitive-looking beast with a genetic blueprint that is wildly more complex than that of the most modern mammals. Now, let's go to something a bit smaller, but no less ancient, the nautilus. While its cousins, the octopus and the squid, evolved to lose their shells and develop massive brains and camouflage abilities, the nautilus stayed exactly the same for 500 million years. It is essentially a snail-like creature with tentacles living inside a perfectly spiraled chambered shell. The nautilus uses these chambers to regulate buoyancy, pumping gas and fluid in and out to sink or rise. Science is fascinated by the nautilus because it possesses a pinhole eye, a very primitive visual organ that lacks a lens. Evolution usually moves toward better optics, yet the nautilus has ignored 500 million years of visual improvement. How does a creature with such limited senses and a slow-moving shell survive in an ocean filled with fast, intelligent predators like sharks and whales? Some suggest their secret is their incredibly low metabolism and their ability to live in deep, oxygen-poor zones where competitors can't follow. But even so, the nautilus remains a beautiful, spiraled question mark in the history of the seas. For our 7th prehistoric survivor, we look at the okapi. Often called the forest giraffe, the okapi was unknown to the Western world until 1901, leading many to believe it was a myth. A unicorn of the African Congo. While it looks like a cross between a zebra and a giraffe, it is actually the only living relative of the giraffe that still retains the body shape of their common ancestor from 20 million years ago. While the giraffe evolved an impossibly long neck to reach the tops of trees in the open savanna, the okapi stayed in the dense rainforest, keeping its shorter neck and developing large, sensitive ears to detect predators in the thick brush. The mystery here is why the okapi's lineage split so dramatically. Why did one branch go through such radical physical changes while the other remained a ghost of the Miocene? The okapi's existence proves that if an environment remains stable enough, evolution simply doesn't happen. It is a living snapshot of a world that existed before the great grasslands of Africa even formed. The 8th creature is one that many people find unsettling, the lamprey. These jawless, eel-like fish have a circular mouth filled with rows of horn-like teeth used to latch onto other fish and drink their fluids. They have been around for 360 million years, predating the dinosaurs by a massive margin. They have no bones, only a skeleton made of cartilage, and they lack scales and fins. What baffles scientists about the lamprey is its incredible ability to regenerate its spinal cord. If a human's spinal cord is severed, The damage is permanent, but a lamprey can completely heal a severed spine and regain full mobility in just a few weeks. Modern medicine is desperately trying to understand the genetic instruction manual the lamprey uses to trigger this regeneration. How did such a primitive, ancient organism develop a healing capability that is light years ahead of any advanced vertebrate? It hints at a biological potential that we are only just beginning to uncover. Number 9 is the pelican. You might see them at the pier and think of them as just another bird, but the pelican is a true survivor from the age of giants. Fossil records of pelicans dating back 30 million years show birds that are nearly indistinguishable from the ones flying today. Their most iconic feature, the massive throat pouch, was already fully developed in the Eocene. While most bird lineages went through rapid diversification and change, the pelican hit a home run with its design and hasn't felt the need to change a single feather since. Science struggles to explain how a bird with such a specialized and seemingly cumbersome feeding mechanism avoided the pitfalls of specialized extinction. Usually, if an animal is too specialized and its environment shifts, it goes under. But the pelican has seen the world change from a tropical hothouse to an ice age and back again, and it just kept scooping up fish. It is a testament to the idea that sometimes the first draft of an idea is the best one. Finally, we have the platypus. If ever there was an animal that science couldn't explain, it is this one. When the first skin of a platypus was sent to England in the late 18th century, many scientists thought it was a hoax, a taxidermy joke made by sewing a duck's bill onto a beaver's body. The platypus is a monotreme, a primitive mammal that lays eggs instead of giving birth to live young. It has been around for over 100 million years, but the mysteries go deeper. It has 10 sex chromosomes, whereas most mammals only have 2. It produces venom in spurs on its hind legs, a trait almost unheard of in mammals. It uses electroreception to find prey in the mud, just like the paddlefish and the coelacanth. It even has milk-producing glands but no nipples, it just sweats milk onto its skin for its young to lap up. The platypus is a walking mosaic of reptilian, avian, and mammalian traits. It defies every category we try to put it in. It is a survivor from a time when the lines between different types of animals were still being drawn, and for some reason, it decided to stay in that blurred reality forever. These 10 animals are more than just curiosities. They are challenges to the traditional narrative of evolution. We like to think of evolution as a ladder of progress, with every generation getting better or more advanced. But these living fossils show us that sometimes excellence is achieved early on, and change is just unnecessary noise. They have survived asteroid strikes that wiped out 80% of life on Earth. They have survived ice ages that covered continents in miles of frozen water. They have survived the rise and fall of countless species that were supposedly more advanced than them. Why did they survive when the mighty T-Rex and the clever Velociraptor did not? One common thread seems to be their choice of habitat. Deep oceans, isolated islands, and stable freshwater systems act as time capsules. In these places, the rules of competition are different. Another factor may be their generalist diets or their incredibly efficient metabolisms. The nautilus and the coelacanth don't need much food to stay alive, allowing them to weather famines that lasted for thousands of years. But even with these explanations, there is a sense of wonder that science can't quite capture. There is a biological stubbornness in these creatures that is almost poetic. The coelacanth, for instance, has a genome that evolves at a glacially slow pace. Scientists have found that its protein-coding genes have changed less in 400 million years than ours have in the last few million. This raises the question of whether there is a master switch for evolutionary speed. Could we someday tap into the mechanisms that allow the horseshoe crab's blood to be so resilient, or the lamprey's spine to heal so perfectly? These ancient animals aren't just relics of the past. They are potentially the keys to our future medical breakthroughs. Think about the horseshoe crab again. Its blue blood is the gold standard for medical safety. Every year, hundreds of thousands of these creatures are caught, bled, and then released back into the wild. We are dependent on a 400-million-year-old animal to keep our modern surgical suites and pharmacies safe. It is a humbling thought. We consider ourselves the masters of the planet, but we are reliant on a creature that was already ancient when the first dinosaur was born. The tuatara's third eye is another point of fascination. While it is covered by scales in adults, it still functions to perceive light and may even play a role in regulating the animal's circadian rhythms and thermoregulation. It is a literal third eye that provides a different way of experiencing the world. It reminds us that there are many ways to build a successful organism, and our mammalian way is just one of many. The tuatara's existence on just a few offshore islands of New Zealand is precarious, but the fact that it made it this far is nothing short of a miracle. And then there is the sturgeon, the giant of the river. Some species can grow to over 20 feet long and live for 100 years. They are like living logs, armored against predators that no longer exist. In many ways, the sturgeon is a victim of its own success. Because it has survived so long without changing, it is now struggling to adapt to the one thing the Earth has never seen before: human-made dams and pollution. Evolution prepared them for volcanoes and ice, but not for concrete. The okapi's story is one of camouflage and secrecy. Its striped hindquarters help it disappear into the dappled light of the rainforest, making it invisible even to the most sharp-eyed predators. This ghost bird of the forest reminds us that even in the 21st century, there are parts of our world that remain mysterious. The okapi was only discovered because scientists finally listened to the indigenous people who had known about the animal for centuries. It serves as a reminder that science often has a lot of catching up to do when it comes to the wisdom of the natural world. The paddlefish, with its electrical snout, shows us that high-tech solutions aren't a human invention. This fish was scanning its environment with electrical sensors long before humans even figured out how to use a stone tool. The complexity and precision of the paddlefish's rostrum are so advanced that engineers study it to improve sensory arrays on underwater drones. Far from being primitive, these ancient animals are often more advanced in specific areas than anything we have created. As we look at the pelican, we see a master of the air and water. Its hollow bones and air sacs make it incredibly light for its size, an evolutionary trick that birds perfected millions of years ago. The pelican's pouch is a marvel of skin elasticity and muscle control. When it dives into the water, the pouch expands to hold gallons of water and fish, acting as a natural net. It is a design so efficient that it has remained the same since the time when whales still had tiny hind legs. The platypus continues to be the ultimate outlier. Geneticists have discovered that the platypus contains genes that are also found in reptiles and birds, particularly those related to egg-laying and venom production. It is a genetic bridge. It shows us that the path to becoming a mammal wasn't a straight line, but a messy experimental process. The platypus is what happens when one of those experiments actually works and decides to keep going for 100 million years. What can we learn from these 10 prehistoric animals? Perhaps the most important lesson is one of humility. We often think of the history of life as a story that culminates in us, but these creatures show that life is much more diverse and resilient than our narrow perspective. They are the true masters of the earth. They have seen the world end, and they are still here. They remind us that survival isn't always about being the smartest, the fastest, or the most evolved. Sometimes it's about having a blue-colored immune system, a fat-filled lung, or just the stubbornness to stay exactly as you are while the world turns upside down. Science will continue to probe their DNA, scan their strange organs, and map their ancient migration routes. But there is a part of them that will always remain unexplained. There is a mystery in a creature that can look at a T-Rex and a modern human and see them both as just passing fancies in a much longer story. They are the anchors of our biological history, holding fast while the storms of time blow past. As you go about your day, think about the coelacanth in its deep-sea cave or the tuatara on its windy island. Think about the horseshoe crab's blue blood keeping you safe. These animals are a living connection to the deep past, a reminder that we are part of a massive, ancient, and incredibly resilient tree of life. They have survived everything the universe has thrown at them. Let's hope we are smart enough to ensure they survive the one thing they weren't prepared for: us. The story of life on Earth is billions of years old, and we have only been here for a tiny fraction of that time. These 10 animals are our elders. They are the keepers of secrets we are only just beginning to understand. Whether it's the regeneration of the lamprey or the buoyancy of the nautilus, there is a wealth of knowledge hidden in these outdated designs. We should look at them not as primitive, but as the champions of existence. They are the winners of the greatest marathon ever run, the race for survival. Keep your eyes on the natural world, for even in your own backyard, there might be a survivor of a forgotten era. Evolution is a beautiful, complex, and often unpredictable force. And as these 10 prehistoric animals show, sometimes the best way to move forward is to never move at all. Stay curious, respect the ancients, and remember that we are just one chapter in a book that was being written long before we arrived and will hopefully continue long after. The coelacanth is still out there, waiting in the dark. The horseshoe crab is still marching on the shore. The story goes on, and it is more mysterious than we can ever fully explain.